On it. There we go. Good evening, everyone. My name is Douglas Sprang, and I lead the Energy and Environment series for the MIT Club of Northern California. Our mission has been to feature top speakers. Sorry about that. Oh, God. I beg your pardon. Forgot to turn that off. Our mission has been to feature top speakers doing groundbreaking work in the fields of renewable energy, electric vehicles, storage systems, and climate change. Tonight, we are featuring Evelyn Wang, who, after heading up the Department of Energy's ARPA-E program for the previous 2 years, returned to MIT this April as MIT's Vice President of Energy and Climate, a new high-level position at the Institute. I'm also happy to say that we have partnered once again with the MIT Alumni Energy, Environment, and Sustainability Network, EESN, for this special event. It goes without saying that the new administration of our federal government has brought a very different philosophy and a challenging, well, after all, it is Halloween, a challenging, some would say even scary approach to energy and climate policy. So how will MIT continue to engage in leading edge energy and climate research and remain a productive and influential resource in the coming years? We hope to give you a clear look at this with tonight's event. But before starting the program, let's hear a few words from our partner, Sarah Simon, Director of the EESN. Sarah.
Thank you, Douglas. Yep, I'm Sarah Simon. I'm class of 72, and my department was civil engineering, and it's now called environmental also. And I am the chair of the network, and started nearly 20 years ago. The network is an umbrella group, which is dedicated to promoting and connecting MIT alums and groups around the world who are deeply involved in the business of climate solutions, conducting research on this, or advocating for strong public policy and support for a better world. Some of our alums, like Evelyn, are right at MIT, and so many in our alumni community are working at other universities, in businesses and investment, or maybe we're just an alum who cares very deeply about a better world for now and for future generations. It is very inspiring to get to know each other and hear how we alums are making progress in this mission. Our network is also focused on educating alums and others. We plan for monthly online webinars and partner with many of the groups around the world who are doing climate and sustainability programs. The issues are very complex, the interconnected and dynamic challenges of energy, environment, and climate. And so we have a whole range of things we talk about. For example, last week's program featured 2 alums involved in the path to fusion energy. You can always find more information on our programs, our network groups, and resources on our Alumni Association homepage. And this evening, EESN is delighted to be introducing Evelyn Wang, a star alumna in this work, to a wide swath of alumni. And we do it with the Club of Northern California that Douglas works about. You'll hear about her expertise and experience in environmental research and public service shortly in a conversation with our fireside chat moderator, Ray Rothrock, another accomplished alum with impressive experience in energy and technology-based businesses. Back to you, Doug.
Thank you, Sarah. We'll see you again at the end of the program. Now, just for the audience to know, we are not going to do a live Q&A tonight because of the large size of the audience. We had over 400 registrations, and it's a very large group, and it's very, very difficult to do that effectively with so many people. However, our moderator will rely heavily on the questions we got from online registration, many of which were very high quality, and there were lots of them. So we got a lot of good questions that you yourself have submitted, and those are the ones we're going to use in the Q&A session. Okay, the other thing is we recommend for the best viewing experience to put your Zoom into gallery mode. And that way images should be side by side, much like a fireside chat, which you should see right now with me and Sarah side by side. Okay, so now I would like to welcome back our illustrious MIT alum, Ray Rothrock, as moderator for tonight's event. Ray. There he is. So Ray, you have degrees from both Texas A&M and MIT in nuclear engineering, and you were a venture capitalist with Venrock Partners for 25 years. I'm sure this has given you many insights into emerging technologies and how they enter the marketplace. Ray has also had an abiding interest in the field of energy and visits energy companies and their potential customers regularly, making him a true energy expert. We will now turn the program over to Ray, who will help us get to know Evelyn and her ideas better by conducting an interactive fireside chat, after which he will lead the Q&A session. So take it away, Ray.
All righty. Thank you very much, Doug, and thank you, Sarah. And good evening, everybody on the East Coast, the West Coast, the Central Coast, whatever coast you're on. It's good to see you all. Evelyn, if you could come on now, we'd be great to have you. Our guest this evening is Professor Evelyn Wang at MIT. She is as was mentioned, she returned MIT in April as the VP of Energy and Climate, but she's no stranger to MIT. We'll spend a few minutes here sort of getting to know Evelyn a little bit, and then she has some prepared remarks and slides that I think you'll find very interesting about this new initiative. What is this? We're 6 months in, so we've practically solved all the problems by now, right, Evelyn? So Evelyn, where'd you grow up?
Well, hi, Ray. Nice to see you. And let me start by saying thank you, Douglas and Sarah, for hosting this event. So it's great to see everybody here, and happy to be back at the Institute. I grew up in LA, actually. I grew up in a town which now a lot of people know, called Santa Monica, by the beach.
Wow. It's a long way from Santa Monica to Cambridge, but
it is a long way.
But you have some special MIT connections, as I understand it.
Yes.
Prince believes. Tell that little story about your mom and dad.
Well, I'll say that MIT has been in my blood. My parents actually met at the Institute when they were pursuing graduate school. My mom was in chemistry and course 5, and my dad was in electrical engineering, course 6. And they actually met at the old Ashdown house.
Oh my!
And they got married at the chapel. So it's been always great since we were kids, my brothers and I, to hear about Boston and all the great experiences at MIT. So MIT really has been part of us since we were babies, essentially.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Gosh, Ashdown House. I haven't heard. That's where I lived when I was there.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So I know exactly what you mean. So, but did your brothers also go to MIT? Do I have that right? Or
That's right. I have 2
wow.
older brothers. And my oldest brother was course 6. He led the way for our generation, and so he studied electrical engineering and computer science. My second brother decided he was not going to apply to MIT as an undergrad. He studied chemical engineering at Stanford, and he was considered the black sheep. But I will say that somehow he saw the light and did his PhD at MIT later, actually after I got my PhD. But
I'm ready to say you guys swapped coasts, right? Because you went to Stanford for your doctorate, right?
That's right. We swapped coasts. It's great to see both coasts and appreciate the differences, and you see it too, I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
Ray.
yeah.
So
they're very good. The way I figure it, that's probably about $1 million of tuition there amongst your family. So
I know,
the Institute appreciates that. So
I'm certainly grateful for my parents for supporting our journeys. It's been so important, and it's really transformed my life being at MIT as an undergrad.
Yeah, I can imagine. So super. So your career research, you won an extraordinary award, the Prince Sultan bin Abdulaziz International Prize for Water. What was that all about? What led you to research water, and what is that prize about?
Well, Ray, that's an interesting and timely question, I should say.
Yeah.
So, I grew up in LA, and actually, I grew up in a time where already there were significant drought issues in LA. And I think that was one thing that I still remember from my childhood, where there was a scarcity of water, and the city would tell us that we can't keep the sprinklers on.
Oh,
And we had to put these tablets into our toilet so we didn't flush the toilet as much, all these things. And I think that's one thing that certainly resonated with me and remembered to this day, that experience and how water is such an important resource for human life. And I will say that it really wasn't till when I became a professor that I started working in water research. Most of my work during my PhD work was actually more focused on thermal management of electronics, which has become a very hot topic right now
no
because
pun
of data
intended.
centers, and but also think about energy systems. And I guess the prize is an interesting one because actually I share that prize with Omar Yagi, who is one of the Nobel Prize laureates awarded this year in chemistry on metal organic frameworks.
Wow.
And it was actually through a collaboration that started in LA, I should say, because of a trip I went to see my parents, and I was working on a proposal to actually ARPA-E, one of my first proposals working on energy storage system using metal organic frameworks, which is how I started working in this area with Omar Yagi when he was at UCLA. And through that collaboration was where we co-developed a technology harvesting water from air using metal organic frameworks. And that's kind of this journey that we pursued together, which was what led to that prize. And I've been really excited to see Omar's contribution from, of course, MOFs recognized, but also with the applications as water being one of them in the citation. So I've been excited to see that and the impact that that these metal organic frameworks could certainly have in the real world.
Wow. I was reading your Wikipedia page and they compare this invention, this capability to moisture vaporizers on the desert planet Tatooine.
Yeah.
Maybe George Lucas was inspired by your work and all that. Although yeah, this came much later, but anyway, very cool. That's really good. So you're a professor at MIT, mechanical engineering department head. That's always fun. I guess it's a temporary duty assignment in the life of a professor. But what took you down to Washington? How did you get who called you and what was the inspiration to go to ARPA-E?
Yeah, that's a fun story too. I'll say I've never thought I would serve in the government,
Oh,
though I will say that during my time, and I think MIT has given me so many opportunities. And
mm,
during my time at MIT, I was actually exposed to a program called the Defense Science Study Group, DSSG, which many people don't know. But actually, it's a program which is for faculty members and in diverse areas to learn about defense challenges and how we can potentially serve our nation with the expertise that we have. And that program actually has changed my perspective on what it means to serve. Part of it was that the mentorship included many four-star generals that
mm.
were just recently retired, and they just traveled around all the U.S. to kind of share with us all their knowledge and all the challenges and all the opportunities and our responsibility as citizens. But as department head, then I just, I was also lucky to serve in that role as department head. Well, I guess lucky, and it's challenging always to be in
Sure.
administration, but it was an opportunity to see much bigger than I think the research that I do in my own research group. And it's always kind of inspired me to think bigger about what roles I should be pursuing. And, when you're afforded opportunities, um, you should seize them if it can make hopefully bigger impact than what you can do yourself.
Yeah.
And one day I will say I got a random email, and it was
An
very
email.
cryptic. And it just basically said, um, this is highly confidential. Do not tell anybody. And you are being considered as a potential candidate to serve as director of ARPA-E.
Oh,
And please sign up for us a time slot. and it seriously looked like spam.
I bet it did.
And
Holy cow.
but I was like,
Yeah.
they haven't, they haven't appointed a director, they haven't nominated anybody. Maybe I should click on this link.
Oh my gosh,
And
you clicked
sure
on the
enough,
link?
I clicked
Wow,
on the link.
that's so anti-cybersecurity. Oh my gosh.
I know. I said I was just too curious, and I clicked on a link, and then I sure enough just signed up for a slot, and that was
Wow.
the start of this whole journey.
Wow. Very good. Just for comparison, how big is how many faculty in the mechanical engineering at MIT? How big is it?
So we're the second largest department.
Yeah.
It's about 80 faculty,
Wow.
plus or minus. So it's a pretty large department.
It is
Lots
large.
of diversity of faculty, which has been great, but also a lot of faculty.
Yeah. But ARPA, how big is ARPA-E these days? How many project
So
managers?
ARPA-E is interesting. So, our budget's on the order of about 500 million.
Okay.
And the structure is very nimble. So we try to keep the team tight. So actually, the number of faculty, I would say, is bigger than the federal staff at ARPA-E, which is about 50 or so.
Oh, okay.
And what we do is we actually have essentially agency, kind of like Booz Allen, one of these consulting agencies that actually complement the federal's team. And so we have another about 100 people that we work with in that kind of structure. So, but it's a pretty nimble team. It's just by design to actually allow for rapid change and agility. And I think so. It's a different type of structure than, say, the Mechie department.
I bet. Any highlight from your time there as ARPA-E director? And then we'll move on.
Like I said, I never thought I would serve in the government, but it was probably one of the best times I had in my career so
Oh,
far. And I think one thing I certainly didn't appreciate, even though I've gotten a lot of funding from ARPA-E, and certainly there was my feeling I needed to give back. I think it's just, people always say that people make the place. And I think the people there are just really spectacular. Certainly people at MIT are spectacular. But what I loved about the place is that we had such a vibrant group of talent that were so diverse and had just a passion to make a difference in this world. And that collective passion was pervasive through the work that we were doing together. And it wasn't like, everyone's doing their own thing. People really united and challenged each other and really sought to push themselves so that we could make an impact in the world. And I think that was something that I really cherished, with the talent and just enthusiasm and passion for really making a big difference. And I think the other is that where in a government role like ARPA-E, it's different than a typical government role because it's designed to be a high risk, high reward type agency with a lot of agility, and we were able to do so many things that were outside the box of a traditional government structure. And I would say that you get to see the whole view of energy from a lens that you typically cannot see because you have access to everything.
Everything.
Right? You can access national labs, access companies,
Right.
access universities, and really just see the opportunities, but also the challenges, and using, of course, government resources to now bridge gaps that we recognize that are so important to unlock opportunities for impact. And that was something that was just really special. I will say I didn't want to leave. So although
Really?
I love being at MIT too, but it's different. So
Well, that's a great comment to transition back. So here you are at MIT, and a whole new thing that didn't exist when you left to go to Washington. So,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, how'd that phone call go? Or did you get an email and a click this button thing?
So it's another funny story because obviously Sally started right when I left for the government, and because because I was funding basically all universities, and also on leave from MIT, I was very kind of partitioned away from anything MIT. So I was not allowed to engage with MIT at all during my time in the government. And when Sally launched the climate project, actually, I heard the launch because I was also at the same event at the Mass CEC, actually, because we were there as a partner with the Mass CEC to support the efforts there. And so that's where Sally shared this new effort called the Climate Project. And and so in the government, I was just until basically I knew that I could not stay because of my political appointment in the last administration.
Yeah.
The timing was in some ways great, and a headhunter actually contacted me because I couldn't interact with MIT.
Oh,
I
of
actually
course,
got
because
I got
yeah, yeah,
I
I
got
see.
contacted through a headhunter to consider this position for MIT. And so
That,
that's kind of how the journey started there. So I interviewed through the headhunter process.
oh my goodness, all these little rules. Well,
Yeah.
well, congratulations, welcome
No,
back,
thank
and
you.
that's perfect. So I suspect there's a lot of people on this webinar that don't know much about the program and Sally's
Yeah.
initiative. So I think about now, why don't we turn it over to you to tell us about what the program's about, and so bring up your slides, and I'll sit back and take some notes, and it's all good.
Great. Great. Let me share my slides. Here we go. Hopefully you can see them. Yes.
I see them. I'm looking for a text here that we're good. Yeah. All right. Good
We're
enough.
good. Great.
Yeah.
Great. So, as I mentioned, it's such a privilege to be back at MIT. MIT is such a special place. And I think I also feel certainly a lot of privilege, but also a lot of responsibility to lead this charge now for the climate project. Um, when Sally Kornbluth, our president, announced the climate project, she made her priorities very clear. She said, we must find new ways to work together and to work with other sectors and institutions to achieve even more and much more. And certainly, this is where she said, with the climate project, the plan will have succeeded if after 10 years, MIT's work with our partners has changed the expected trajectory of global climate outcomes for the better. So she talks about finding new ways of working together with others and making a measurable difference within a decade. And we certainly appreciate that that's a very ambitious goal. And the way we can achieve this is not by doing more of the same, but by building new models for collaboration across fields, sectors, departments, schools, and communities. And so we've been thinking a lot about how this is a whole of MIT approach. And certainly climate is not new at MIT. We have well over about 300 of our faculty that are already working with our students and research staff on different aspects of the climate problem. And almost all of our academic departments and more than, a lot of our interdepartmental labs, I should say, and centers are involved in some way. And the whole goal of the climate project, though, is to certainly support a lot of the efforts that are ongoing at MIT, but to accelerate the path to impact in a unique way. And we're not trying to establish, say, a new school, for example, but we want to enable the Institute to move faster and do more to address climate change through both mitigation and adaptation. And so that's kind of the premise of how President Kornbluth has been imagining and kind of charging us to think about this new effort called the Climate Project. And when this was stood up, in fact, the way it was structured, thanks to Richard Lester, who was an interim VP before I joined, is that we've set up these, what we call these problem-solving communities. And so there's missions across the areas of climate, which include decarbonizing energy and industry, preserving the atmosphere, land, and oceans, empowering frontline community action, looking at designing resilient and prosperous cities, enabling new policy approaches as well as wildcards, because you never know what else we should be looking at. And the whole goal was that there would be faculty leadership involved with these missions. So we have 6 faculty leaders, as you see here, across the various mission areas. And each director is charged with working with one another and across MIT to engage the faculty, the researchers, the students, the staff as well as outside of MIT, the alumni, all the various industries and governments, et cetera, so that we can accelerate solutions to climate change. And while I've been here for about 6 months, this team actually started before me. And in the last year, we've really been focusing on, a few things. First, building the team to drive this effort. And of course, some of the core operational structures that will help us accelerate these efforts. And one of the things that we started off with was actually trying to activate the internal community. So we launched this spring open call, which had 2 cross-cutting themes that we know that would be very important. And the first was focused what we called on sense, share, and understand. And this effort is aimed to deploy new technologies to generate and interpret data, helping us track progress, inform action, and accelerate solutions that protect people and the planet. And the second one is heat, stress, and cooling, which focuses on ensuring access to livable conditions as climate-driven heat extremes grow more common. And so we've been excited about the engagement across our faculty, in particular, just giving a few examples of areas that we focused on within these themes, one of which is critical cooling. So how do we develop cooling solutions that are grid independent, that can support the communities in need, so we can bridge technology with also the social science piece to really address these problems. And another one, for example, is really looking at compound heat stress, how to provide these quantitative causal estimates of the impact compound heat stress has with air quality and other impacts on health outcomes. So integrating really the atmospheric chemistry, for example, with the modeling of that with environmental economics. So that's kind of one example of some of the early efforts that we launched to really start activating the internal community. Another, which I think we've seen from some of the questions, is that certainly this is an interesting time, and we are really trying to leverage the moment and really respond to areas of need. So for example, looking at resilient US supply chains for critical minerals, that has been active topic in the news, as you've probably seen, obviously with the nickel, copper, lithium, dysprosium, cobalt, all sorts of these kind of critical minerals that are essential for electrification, to that of solar panels, to that of defense applications. And so what we've done here is not just, of course, just fun research, but we believe an opportunity for us is to convene. It's to convene people across the ecosystem, from academia to industry to the government and startups, to help us not only assess the state of the domestic industry, but identify gaps in the supply chains so that we can really address these critical bottlenecks. And subsequently, what we did is we have launched a seed fund call with our faculty to develop kind of the necessary preliminary work, I should say, so that we can be competitive as there is emerging federal funding pipeline specifically on critical minerals. For example, the DOE announced $1 billion of funding. And this is where we want to position MIT, as we have done in history, to be able to address some of the big national challenges and bolster energy security for our nation. The last is also we've launched what we call these momentum grants, thanks to Desh Deshpande, who has been supporting kind of entrepreneurship and innovation. And as many of you know, our faculty and students are extremely entrepreneurial and thinking a lot about spin-outs. And so these momentum grants are helping support now new innovations that are ready to transition out of MIT to another startup, and really supporting that pathway for impact. So one thing I just wanted to share is that with MIT's, especially with Sally's leadership, she's kind of set out many presidential initiatives, and climate project being the first one that she announced as being one of her top priority. But we see this as an opportunity as we think about all the other activities and presidential initiatives that are priorities in her kind of in her strategy. There's significant opportunity for these kind of cross collaborations that will actually help amplify the impact of our work. So for example, there is an effort on AI, on AI impact. So not just the algorithm piece, but how that translates into real world impact across a suite of applications, which is also, of course, very relevant to the climate project. Looking at, there's a new launch of a initiative for new manufacturing. Certainly manufacturing plays a key role in climate challenges. Also looking at health, the intersection of health, as I just mentioned, for example, with heat stress and cooling. So HEALS is another initiative focused on health and life science collaborative, for example, and even quantum, as we think about the future of computing and energy efficiency and how that links to the climate project and education as well as the humanistic elements with Mythic. So while there's a lot in the ecosystem, I think Sally's vision and her strategy has been a lot of this collaborative work that we also believe is essential as we move forward in the climate project efforts. And of course, I think part of her vision for the climate project has been serving as a front door for energy and climate, because there's so much going on in the ecosystem, in the schools, the college and departments, across the policy aspects such as CEPR, the Center for Energy and Environmental Policy Research, or that of JPAL looking at poverty action, and that of MIGHTY, the MIT Energy Initiative. There's so many opportunities, but we see ourselves not as a front door, but also as a connective tissue to bring together a lot of the aspects of the strengths of MIT to do even something bigger. And beyond that, of course, we know that, as Sally has charged us, that this is beyond MIT. And if we really want to solve climate change, we need to partner globally and across all sectors. And that's with other university entities, but also with industry, with investors, with startups, with the government, the national labs, foundations, and incubators, because everybody plays a role for us to be able to really tackle this tremendous challenge ahead. And so with that, though, I will say that education also goes hand in hand. And we not only want to be leaders in terms of impact for research, but also for that of education. And we're developing a lot of different ways to engage with our students. Of course, Europe sees undergraduate research opportunities where they can focus on climate and energy and sustainability problems, and certainly part of the mix. And we're also thinking a lot about education to the outside world, such as curriculum that we're developing through open learning, such as what we're calling the climate literacy for all, to teach climate and energy fundamentals to educate the world. But we do believe that another critical element is the experiential learning piece, and that we believe we need to prepare our students for the real world and to not just learn what's in the books, but to also experience these aspects that are so critical to be future leaders in energy, climate, and sustainability, and getting our students out into the world, immersed in the world, understanding the needs of communities. And that's something that we believe is really critical and as part of our efforts for the climate project. So with that, this is where we are today. So, Sally has charged us, announced the MIT Climate Project about a year ago now. We have these mission directors that are passionate about this, what we're trying to do. I joined the team 6 months ago, and we've been spending a lot of time on thinking about, road mapping, visioning, seeding efforts, and understanding, where can we really make impact? And what I thought I'd share with you for the rest of my talk is really where are we going and where we see what is really the vision of this effort, and where do we think that we can really move the needle collectively. And that's what I thought I'd share with you today. So the heart of the climate project is simple. It's to build well-being. Because the way we think about it is that the measure of climate progress isn't just about tons of CO2 reduced. It's about improving both health as well as planetary well-being. And it's about the clean air, the water, the energy, sustainable food, communities that can thrive. And to do that, I will say that we must treat climate and climate change for what it is. And it's truly a systems problem where energy and food, health and water, ecology and economy are all interconnected. And it's every decision in one affects the outcomes in the others. And so our focus is really on systems-based solutions that integrate across these domains to create the futures that we want to live in. So we believe the unit of change for this work isn't a single technology or a single policy. It's truly a community. And communities are the locus of people and systems where impact is real and where we can build both local resilience, which is critical, as well as global mitigation. And so we will not change the whole world. We recognize that in a single stroke. So our unit of measure must be individual communities. And if we're thoughtful about what communities hold in common and where their needs are distinct, then the solutions that are piloted in one place can serve as templates for others to adapt and then also follow. And this is how we're thinking about then building impact at scale. So we're not going to do it alone, but we believe it's critical so that we co-develop these solutions with partners that will be able to spread across the world. So I should say that over the past 6 months, we've been shaping this ambitious vision, but a vision without action certainly is just a good idea. And so today, what I'll do is I'll share our 3 initial focus areas to show how this vision comes to life and how they can become platforms for collaboration and partnership within MIT and beyond. And so the 3 targets for MIT action are building coastal resilience, decarbonizing ports and shipping, and designing data centers of the future. And ultimately, with the goal in all of these cases to focus on communities. So focusing on how do we empower communities worldwide to build these resilient, sustainable, and prosperous futures amid a changing climate. So let me describe these challenges and our concept for how we're going to tackle them to build this well-being and where we believe MIT can really make a difference. So I'll start off with building coastal resilience. So we know that coastal regions are home to nearly about 40% of the world's population and generate a major share of the global economic activity. And they provide food, jobs, and protection for billions of people. But we also know that these regions are becoming increasingly vulnerable. We know that rising seas, storm surges, the loss of natural barriers are putting homes and livelihoods at risk. And without stronger adaptation, flooding linked to sea level rise could displace hundreds of millions of people and cost trillions of dollars in annual losses by mid-century. And so much of today's investment, understandably so, focuses on these kind of hard infrastructures such as seawalls and mechanical flood defenses. And those are important, but they're also very expensive and not always suited for the local conditions. And so we need strategies that are integrated, equitable, and sustainable over time. So our goal is to work with communities to strengthen coastal resilience in ways that protect people as well as the ecosystems together. And that means combining science, engineering, design, and policy to manage risk while also supporting biodiversity and economic opportunity. And it also means moving from these reactive disaster recoveries to proactive planning and design that mitigates risks before they arise. We need better sensing. We need modeling and data that can help target investments that yield long-term results. And because every coastline is different, we recognize this work must be local and must be guided by community priorities and practical needs. And we believe that if we're successful, then global coastal ecosystems could sequester or avoid about a gigaton of CO2 annually by 2050. And if we pair them with these nature-based solutions with early warning systems and disaster risk planning, it can greatly increase community resilience at the same time. And this is what's critical as we see it, that each dollar invested in these approaches can save many times that amount in disaster recovery, and most importantly, also save lives. So that's our first area. And the second area is focused on decarbonizing ports and shipping. We certainly recognize that transportation accounts for about 15% of global emissions, with shipping alone is responsible for about 3%. And nearly 90% of global trade passes through ports, making them really essential to the world economy, but also a major source of emissions and local air pollution. And at the same time, more than about 80% of ports worldwide face significant flood risks, and millions of people live nearby these ports, often in communities already burdened by environmental and health challenges. So transforming these ports and shipping together offers an opportunity to reduce emissions, strengthen climate resilience, and improve quality of life for people and economies that depend on them. So our vision is that we see ports and shipping evolving into clean, resilient engines of trade, innovation, and human well-being, places where economic growth, environmental health, and community vitality can reinforce one another. And that means that we have to electrify port operations. We need to introduce zero emission vessels and develop new approaches for clean fuel generation. It also means viewing ports as clean energy hubs, producing renewable fuels, integrating microgrids, for example, and introducing efficient and low carbon logistics. And these same systems can create the high quality jobs, strengthen supply chains, reduce energy costs, while also protecting people from climate risk. And we believe that if we're successful, if we can implement this at scale, then ports and shipping decarbonization could cut up to about 1 gigaton of CO2 annually by 2050, while also eliminating most local air pollutants affecting hundreds of millions of people that live near these ports. So we believe there is significant opportunity as we think about innovations across these ports and decarbonizing shipping. And finally, I'll say a few words about where we think the opportunity is for data centers and data center communities. We certainly appreciate that right now, as many of you also hear, that data centers truly support nearly every part of modern life: communication, research, commerce, and education. And they're essential, but they're also consuming a growing amount of energy and water. And in the US, data centers used about 200 terawatt hours of electricity last year, which is roughly about 4% of the national demand, and also used about tens of billions of liters of water for evaporative cooling. And as computing demand increases, we recognize that their impact on grids and communities will be also more significant. And so we believe that a future could be different in which these data centers are not just these isolated industrial facilities, but they actually serve as active partners in a sustainable, resilient community. And they can be built as these quiet, efficient, and clean-powered infrastructure that will enhance the local energy security, return value through, say, heat reuse, operate on near zero freshwater cooling, and provide backup power and connectivity during emergencies. And we believe that together with other changes, we can reimagine the data center as a cornerstone of community resilience and an engine for equitable digital and environmental progress. And collectively, there's an opportunity by which these advances could avoid hundreds of millions of tons of CO2 by 2035. And we can turn these data centers into these more visible partners in communities to help them prosper and enable this climate resilience. So I would say that I want to emphasize that certainly there is opportunities in the areas that we just shared that are targets for the climate project at this moment. But like any research and development, the benefits of these solutions will reach far beyond these three target areas themselves. And it's what will really allow us not only to have a vision, but to bring this vision to life. And what we want to do is not just think about what we could be doing and developing pieces of the solutions. What we want to do is build these pilots. We want to have these living demonstrations that show that these ideas are not only possible, but actually practical. Because we recognize that that's how we'll build the future, that we could take one pilot, one blueprint, one partnership, and also start to multiply them, scale them, so that our impact can be far reaching and far beyond what we do at MIT alone. And this is where we really see there is a lot of opportunity. And this is where we hope that also you will all engage as alumni, because it's not just at MIT, we need to kind of move forward and lead the way, but believe that there are many opportunities for alumni to take part as well. And so there's often a question about how alumni can be engaged. And as President Kornbluth has called this in all of MIT effort, that of course includes all of you here. And we believe there are many avenues. Certainly, as you think about what we're trying to do with these visions, there are connections and networks that are so critical for us to actually take it from ideation of these visions to actually implementation and demonstration. And certainly, as we're training our students and think about how they play a role in this, certainly the mentorship aspect is something they're all seeking from the perspectives from the real world, and how do we actually realize these various areas of impact. And of course, right now, in a time where I would say we have a kind of certainly a lot of uncertainty in higher ed, having your advocacy for research and the role that we play in the ecosystem is critical. And furthermore, of course, the work that we want to execute is going to require resources. So finding mechanisms for support for resources philanthropically, as well as from industry, from the governments, is something that we've been very proactive to try to seek out for us to be able to realize the work that we've set forth in the climate project. So we certainly would appreciate, of course, working with all of you, because we know that collaboration is so critical. But we also would welcome, your thoughts as to where you see the opportunities as we're further trying to craft out this work. And I'll just end here with where we believe we'd like to move forward. And we certainly recognize that the future that we have is that we want to create. It's not something that we just await. It's something we have to build. And we recognize that it's not with the isolated breakthroughs, but with a shared purpose, and not necessarily with just perfect plans, but having courageous collaborations that are so critical in this moment. And it's not just about what we do at MIT in the labs, but working with communities, with people all across the ecosystem, working in coastlines, these ports, these neighborhoods around the world. And so we see the climate project really as more than an initiative. It's really about a movement powered by the people and the communities and those that believe in science and also believe in compassion and innovation and collaboration and how we can shape a better tomorrow. And I'll say the work is certainly going to be very challenging, and the vision that Sally has charged us with is very bold and ambitious and challenging. But we also are very optimistic about how we can move forward together across these disciplines and across the boundaries and across generations so that we can build something truly extraordinary. And so I end with this portion of it. So really recognizing that there are many hands, but we only have one future. And so we really need to build this future of well-being together. And this is why I really appreciate this opportunity to share where we're going, but also we recognize there's so much more to be done for us to realize this future and what we can achieve. So with that, I'll pass this over back to Ray,
Okay.
and I will stop sharing my slides and we can have a dialogue and conversation and answer some questions.
Great. Well, my goodness, Evelyn, that was a sweeping review of what the idea is, what the plan is. It's just, it's the first time I've seen it spoken as broadly and as carefully as you did. So that was really, that was wonderful. Well, I've got a few questions of my own, but first of all, I want to thank everybody who submitted questions. We've got a bunch here, and some of them are pretty nerdy and technical, and some of them are pretty broad. But the one that just popped right out here is, I mean, you're going to be working, you use the word working together. I think, I don't know, I didn't count them a dozen times, reaching beyond MIT and a big partnership. But what, if you could, is there a moonshot project buried in here somewhere? Is there a moonshot project?
So it's a good question. Maybe I'll answer it in the way that we've been thinking about it. I think, when you think about a moonshot, literally is the moon. And all right, we're trying to get to the moon. And I think this challenge with climate is far beyond just a moonshot, right?
Yeah.
You need many moonshots. And I think the key for the way we've been thinking about it is that's why we see it as a system. You can't just address one piece of it. And so, of course, I think people, especially at MIT, and given the innovations that have come out, would say, "Oh, fusion's a moonshot," and I would say, "Yes, we need fusion to happen, right? But that's not the only thing we need." And I feel that the way we've tried to position the project is about this integrated systems challenge and being able to realize a future in an integrated way where fusion and energy and fusion and critical minerals, for example, or there's so many, or the water scarcity issue, all need to come together because we need all these pieces to work for us to be able to realize these futures. And so I would say the moonshot example is actually realizing these communities that we've defined in the climate project.
Yeah. I totally get that, and it will take many moonshots. I just a question about your so you picked the three actions: the decarbonization of ports and shipping. Interesting, some stats there. 15% transportation, ships are 3% of the car. That's a very interesting topic. I would not have thought that would be the first an initial action point. Was there something behind? Was there some request, or maybe you've observed it in government? I don't know. What got you to ships and ports?
Well, we certainly recognize there's such a diversity of types of communities, and there was a lot of discussions within our team. And the way we thought about picking these specific areas was opportunity for transformation, looking at the expertise of MIT and our partners, and then of course, where is the impact? And we know that transportation, given is a pretty significant kind of carbon footprint, and recognizing also we have a lot of expertise with kind of thinking about the oceans, looking at kind of alternative fuels. We actually have a maritime consortia that was launched focused on and so started thinking about where are there areas where they become so important for us to resolve that also there is a gap in being able to really kind of move the needle. And I think I would say it's not just about the technological solutions. And that's where I think often MIT is known, obviously, for the technology piece. But because we also have scientists on our team, for example, one of the areas I've been on a lot of debate is about actually alternative fuels. So while a lot of focus has been on, say, ammonia as an alternative fuel, however, we also have great scientists that understand kind of the ecosystems, right, of the oceans and say, well, is that really, it's good for maybe thinking about, decarbonization from that perspective, but what's the impact on the actual, the biological pieces in the ocean, right? And
Yeah.
I think thinking about holistic problems is how we're really trying to solve them, and thinking about the expertise that we have with our
Mhm.
oceanographers and our scientists as well as the engineers. We believe it positions us well for some of these challenges that we believe there are gaps, and really identifying a true path forward rather than saying we think there's a solution on the energy side to decarbonize, but then we don't think about the rest of the ecosystem impact. So that's kind of how we've ended
Yeah.
up in some of these areas where we're leveraging the expertise, also some of the partnerships we've already developed, and who, of course, will support these kinds of efforts, right? Where can we get resources to actually support, say, decarbonizing a shipping? We believe there are promising pathways. And so that's kind of where we've kind of how we've thought about things.
Yeah. If I could offer, you also mentioned that 90% of the economy runs through ports. So I got to believe there's a role for our economist and our business
Of
school
course, of
to
course.
play, because you're touching everything that everything from Amazon we get. I mean, everything flows in through the port basically. So
Absolutely.
anything you do
And
is going to affect the economics of shipping. So there you go.
of course, yes, and I think certainly the supply chains aspect and all the
Yeah, the supply chain,
potential
sure.
policy,
Yeah.
and I would say I was trying to give one example, but certainly, and I will say this is kind of how we also saw where we can leverage the expertise of our whole ecosystem, not just engineers and scientists, but also
Right,
economists,
right,
as you said,
right,
and the social scientists, and think
right.
about these holistic problems, and that's the opportunity, which is hard to do typically in, say, industry, where you're really focused on a specific problem set.
Yeah, yeah, I'm totally there. Let's uh, dive into AI here. Here's some questions around AI. Does the AI race to the top present critical setbacks to reduce global warming?
Mm.
Uh,
I think that's a good question. And I always think about it as a duality, because certainly AI is draining, using a lot of our resources, and certainly I think that's why there is a challenge to communities, which is why we've also been thinking a lot about that problem, because it's such a it's a topic in the news a lot right now in
yeah,
terms
every day.
of every day about energy, need more energy dominance, because of driving the AI revolution. But I would say that AI has also enabled to advance and accelerate research to be able to develop these clean energy solutions, address, say, the grid challenges, stabilize plasma and fusion reactors. There's so much, and in materials discovery for catalysts,
Yeah, yeah,
for alternative fuels. So I would say that it's been such a great tool and enabler for advancement of science and engineering and technological solutions. And so in my mind, it's this duality where, yes, there are challenges that need to be addressed in terms of the energy demand, but also, and the water challenge right now as well.
yeah.
But so it's hard to know, I think, at this point, what will win. Uh, but I think that's where the opportunity still is, and we got to continue to innovate. And of course, if we can really kind of make a breakthrough in fusion, really have fusion power plants, that I think there will be less of a concern about the climate impacts and the need for uh, other non kind of clean sources
Yeah.
of energy if we can make it economical as well.
Yeah, no doubt AI is going to play a big role in all kinds of discovery and efficiency and whatever. One of the questions here, are there any metrics? You've talked about, water and kilowatts or whatever. Are there any
Mhm.
metrics, and this is a good question, metrics that measure the real world impact, particularly in climate?
Mhm.
I've been scratching my head on that one for a couple of days. I'm not, what are we measuring in the AI world?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I would say that the impacts on the metrics in my mind ultimately, and I think for the climate project, I'll say that because we're focused on building well-being, obviously there are metrics associated with health outcomes,
Yeah, good.
looking at, of course, abatement of CO2, but ultimately health outcomes, right, is critical. And but also, so like, and disasters that we've avoided potentially because of our ability to mitigate, you know, uh, the decarbonize essentially. So I think there are metrics for all of these ultimately.
Yeah.
And I will say though, those are metrics that are so holistic. I think when we think about it, we also have to have sub metrics to be able to enable these kind of really large system metrics. And that's something that I believe we're trying to make that's unique about the efforts we're pursuing, where we're also trying to work towards um, subsystem metrics. So, for example, if we're going to develop a new kind of fuel, for example, what's a conversion of new to CO2 to X or something? What's the efficiency? What's the how much energy does this require? And we want to bring these metrics together from the kind of the component level to the system level so that it can
Yeah,
kind of we
right,
can
right.
figure out the different pathways
Yeah,
by which we can actually achieve the ultimate metric. So modeling, systems modeling
yeah,
will be very important along the way. But ultimately, like I said, we believe the metrics are going to be these more holistic metrics that ultimately show whether we're successful or not.
yeah. And it's early days, but I agree with you. The system measurements and holistic measurements, that'll be good. Okay, there's three questions on AI, and you've managed to cover all three kind of in this short period. So thank you for that. Okay, here's a good one on, I'll just read it verbatim on political. Since low cost energy is key to input into civilization, how much harm has climate change policy caused globally? How do you weigh the trade-off of climate risk versus raising people out of poverty via growth? Those are some big swings there. We do have a global south that needs to get out, they need energy. They need lots of it. So, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I guess I'll say that certainly as I reflected on this, that cheap and reliable energy has certainly built modern life. But I will say now we do have clean energy that has become cheap and reliable. We have solar and wind and with batteries that are the lowest cost new
Amazing.
power
Yeah.
in most countries.
Hmm.
And so I feel that, we're not really doing, I think, we now have options, right? In terms of
Mm.
it's not about sacrificing to have smart climate policy. You know, it's really about, of course, there's still more to be developed in terms of innovation, because we know that as you want to penetrate more, you want to have more penetration of solar and wind, you need longer duration energy storage. But we already have cheap and reliable energy that can be kind of distributed to a lot of places in the world. And so I guess that's how I see it. It's clean. So it's not like we're making trade-offs. It is really
Ah,
about
and-
deploying more.
yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I get it. I see your point about no trade-off. Okay, that's fascinating. Do you think a carbon tax is possible in the U.S.? Would that be? Are you going to study? Is your group going to study that in any way? The economics?
Uh, and certainly I think that is something that has been also an important topic. And we have experts thinking a lot about that. And I reflect on it too, because certainly as we think about carbon tax, what does it take?
Yeah.
Um, and there's these elements of trust in how we design it and the politics of it, and
Mhm.
um, it's challenging, and we've certainly seen that. I say the opposite of a carbon tax is off what we saw in the last administration,
Yeah.
which were these tax credits and with the IRA, right?
Right.
And certainly it's uh, the challenge of the IRA was the execution, I think, and really getting enough permits and a lot of the work to unleash this kind of opportunity to take advantage of really what
Yeah.
IRA was kind of uh, intended for.
Yeah. There's a
And I
lot of
think,
tax incentives in the IRA.
yeah, there are a lot of tax incentives, and so I think it's kind of the opposite, I guess, as I reflect on the carbon tax, and we need people to really trust that the money won't disappear, say in Washington, and so the revenue would go back straight to, they say, households or fund visible local projects, and also the tax has to be designed to protect jobs and competitiveness. So, say with rebates for trade exposed industries, and I would say that in thinking about, it needs kind of a bipartisan type framing, not just a punishment. I think we hear a lot of, and um, it really needs to be a market-based way to reward
Mhm.
cleaner choices and cut red tape, for example. Um, and when, say, voters see it lowering emissions and protecting also their pockets, right, their
Yeah. Sure.
wallets,
Sure.
then maybe it's possible, but I will say that it's not easy, right,
Not
to make
easy.
it not easy.
Very much not easy. And
Yeah.
it is political, more political than probably it
Yeah,
needs to be, I would think.
that's right.
Um, a technical question. Are you looking at geoengineering?
Mm.
Is that on the agenda somewhere?
Well, I will say that I think geoengineering is very broad, right? So certainly
Yeah.
like direct air capture is geoengineering.
Yes.
Also, ocean alkalinity enhancement is geoengineering, for example. There's also solar radiation management, that's also
Yeah.
geoengineering.
Yeah.
I think certainly there's a lot of research going on in geoengineering, particularly related to direct air capture, for example, looking at ocean alkalinity enhancement. Those are areas of kind of significant interest, as we see that there's still a lot of CO2 that we have to draw down and abate. And so thinking about mechanisms to do so and understanding the trade-offs are really important. So there is a lot of work, I would say, in these kinds of areas. Materials, for example, for direct air capture is
Yeah.
an example of that as well. So so there is R&D, and certainly
Yeah.
in many of these areas.
I think about your water research, extracting a little bit of water out of the atmosphere. That's sort of right up your power alley.
Yeah.
How to take out the nasty things in air that we need.
That's right. And that's right. And that's exactly how I mean, same kinds of materials, right? Metal organic frameworks have been a great way to draw water. They can
Mm.
make it more tailored to have more affinity to water than, say, CO2, but you can also do the other, right? You can also, and that's exactly one mechanism to actually absorb CO2 from the air, is using these MOFs.
Yeah, got it. Another technical question here with this. I love this little setup. Nuclear power is making a quote sorta comeback. Uh, uh, the, for you, how can we safely store the waste? I would assume that this would involve different sites in different continents, Nevada, US, whatever. Is there any research in nuclear waste on your agenda, or what to do with it?
Well, Ray, you're actually the expert in nuclear, right?
I know, but I'm
So,
not the VP of Energy and Climate.
yeah. So I will say nuclear, and I think MIT traditionally has always had a
Yeah.
great, I think just a great history and contribution and impact in nuclear, both fission and fusion. And nuclear waste is certainly an area of importance. And we do have a faculty that's actually focused on this topic, and just generally thinking about, how do we do it safely? Where should we do it? I think are topics of interest. Also, transmutation, for example, is can you transmute? I think we're having another new faculty focused as think about how do you reduce the half-life of waste, right? So you can actually don't have to have such large storage for nuclear waste. But also there's this reprocessing opportunity. I think there's, as you think about the back end, especially of emerging technologies, how do you say reprocess a waste to then use it as fuel again? Right. And I think that those are opportunities. It does require innovation to do that. But I think those are also areas of interest and exploration.
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot that can be done there. It's and if we were to double the reactor fleet, we would definitely have to solve the problem quicker than we have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Here's a good question about MIT. So I guess 20 years ago, the Energy Initiative was started under President Hockfield. What's your relationship to the Energy Initiative, and how are you going to work? How's that one MIT going to work with them?
Yeah, so MIT Energy Initiative was a really visionary opportunity. I think it was started, like you said, I think 20 years ago now, and really with a mission for zero low carbon solutions to expand energy access and mitigate climate change. And they still play a really important role. They've played a really important role in policy in particular, and also in a lot of technological innovation. And I would say that we are actively engaging and working together because, like I said, there's a lot of these different centers and initiatives on campus. And I think Sally really saw this as an opportunity for us to bridge, kind of create bridges and connective tissue so that we can actually create something even bigger. And this is where I see the Energy Initiative focused on energy is going to play a role, but may not fill all the needs. As we know, with the systems challenge, it's not just about energy. Energy is a big part of it, but there are all these other pieces of food, water, and health, these pieces that are not traditionally kind of obviously in MIT Energy Initiative, right? And so I think that's where we see the kind of the synergy, but also where we need to complement the strengths of the MIT Energy Initiative to enable these systems kind of platforms.
Yeah, I very much like that approach. It's something that the U.S. is good at, and we should double down on the systems approach to things. Okay, here's the sort of transition into a pop quiz, if you will. Always in all my interviewing of company CEOs over time and recruiting CEOs and stuff. So you're the CEO of the Energy and Climate here. 5 years in the future, the New York Times calls on you, or Wall Street Journal, or somebody calls on you and says, Evelyn, how's it going? Did you accomplish what you wanted to accomplish? What do you want that headline to say? How do you want it to, mission will not be accomplished in 5 years. This is like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. I think you're going to do it forever. But what do you want that headline to say? What do you, just imagine for a minute, like we did 20 startups. We had, I don't know, we took out so many tons of CO2 or just whatever. How do you want the article to read? What would that headline be for you? It's the pop
And I
quiz.
think
I get to do
I
that.
will say that in my mind, I think success will be demonstration of these pilots that actually show that they can be economically affordable, that they can actually have a potential to actually reduce CO2 by this X amount. It bolsters jobs, local economies by this much.
Got it.
And if scaled, it will have this impact. So the headline I would like to see is, MIT and partners lead the future data center that now bolsters local economies for communities, and improves their livelihood, something like that.
Yeah.
Or It could be on the coastline. MIT and partners have now kind of developed, regenerative aquaculture and nature-based solutions that can now prevent kind of these, allow communities to be more resilient in
Yeah.
the presence of this storm surge, and it's reduced
Yeah.
costs by this much because now they don't have to deal with all the flooding that's happened. I think those kinds of headlines are what I'm
That's
hoping to
good.
achieve.
That's good.
But of course it's going to be the first of a kind, and we have to think about how we scale it to others. But the fact that people can see tangibly the impacts
Ah,
of the work.
yeah, you use the word economics right up front in your first sentence, and I think that's so essential. There's so
Yeah.
much great technology that sometimes never makes it to the real world. So
Yeah.
to have your project to be economical and to have the community impact, that would be massive. Yeah, I hope that in 5 years there's many of those. Maybe.
Well, Ray, I'll say we'll need your help as well as others,
Oh
because I
yeah,
know we cannot do this alone. This is
yeah,
not an easy effort, and in a time scale
good.
that is pretty
Yeah,
short.
pretty
But
aggressive.
I'm optimistic that that's what we should be doing, because we got to be bold and ambitious to really help shape our future.
So if there's any alums out there that run the port of San Francisco or Long Beach or Houston or New Orleans, give us a call. Uh,
Yes, absolutely. We
that's
need all of you, all of
yeah,
your help.
yeah. Well, look, we're getting close to the top of the hour here. Any final thoughts or comments? We're talking to well over 100 folks out there that are interested in this. Is there something you want to say that we haven't covered?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ray. And maybe I'll just reiterate, I think we're at the starting phases of
Yeah.
this journey.
Yeah.
And we are very passionate, excited, and recognize the opportunity. And at the same time, though, we also need your help and support to help us
Right.
shape it further. And I think with the alumni brain trust, I should say, of this whole alumni network is incredible, because you have so many experiences and expertise. And this is where we would love to hear and learn from you as well, so that we can do this and actually be successful. And I think we are driven by impact. And so we really want this to be not business as usual. While business as usual at MIT is great, we're trying to do something different. And I think we know that we all have different experiences that complement, I think, what we're trying to achieve, but also will be critical. So we hope that you will engage with us and also offer us outside the box ideas and how we
Yeah.
can really move forward in ways that will really move the needle. And that's what I really always appreciate about MIT, is the outside the box thinking and the creativity and intellectual stimulus of all the people I engage with in the alumni groups. So just want to say thank you, and thanks for listening, and really look forward to engaging more.
Yeah, thank you very much. Your opening sentence in your first slide was, I wrote it down here. You want to enable more speed towards
Yeah.
mitigation and adaptation, and time is not our friend here. And so
No.
it's more than technology; it's commitment and speed to get the impact you're looking for. Evelyn, thank you so very much.
Well,
What
thank you,
an
Ray.
amazing time tonight. I've
Yeah.
learned so much from you, and I look forward to interacting with you. And I don't know, we can talk nuclear later.
Yes, I would love your thoughts too. All right.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Doug, you want to come on? There he is.
Sure do. Here I am. Oh, wow. Well, this was really great to be able to hear the breadth of this. I mean, this is the first time I've heard it too, and it's bigger than I ever imagined. So I have to say,
Yeah.
good luck on this, Evelyn, because it's a very, very large scale program. And on the other hand, we've done fabulous things at MIT for decade after decade after decade, and I think out of this is going to come a new wave of things. One of the things that struck me actually later on in your discussion was the notion that, you know, things involving renewable energy and storage and all this sort of stuff. really, really important for all of this, continues to be important, but it's actually ongoing now. It's not in the research phase so much as it is in the implementation phase of the rollout phase. So we need new things now, and I really do like the approach to address the non-energy related or the CO2 percentage in the atmosphere related things, and talk more about the effect it has on people and everything. So it's really an exciting program, and I wish you all the best on that. Thank you
Thank
both
you.
for this wonderful job. Thank you, Ray, for being a great moderator as usual. You do not disappoint.
Thank
Sarah,
you.
you have anything to add?
Yeah. Sarah?
Thank you. It's been great hearing you and Evelyn, really wonderful kinds of information about how we can contribute. And I was particularly happy to hear that alums are an important part of all of MIT, because there's a lot of alumni collaboration around the world. It's very hard from the West Coast or the East Coast to think about the rest of the world. And this is at a time when there were opportunities for people in Asia to join us at this seminar. And I don't know how many of the folks out there are actually there online with us. Our European people who we work with quite a bit in the network were not available. People doing supply chain work, et cetera. There's lots of us implementing a circular economy. And it's very great to hear from you. It's a real inspiration to once again get us out there to be bold and ambitious. There's a lot of alumni who have spoken at our various webinars. And yes, we are part of the Alumni Brain Trust, and we're very eager to help. And we certainly will be in touch along the way. And people should reach out both to Doug's group in the Club of Northern California and to the EESN network. So thank you very much, Evelyn and Doug, for helping get this together. And Ray, it was a wonderful presentation.
Okay.
Right.
All right, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
We're all good. Thank
Thank
you, audience,
you.
for coming. Bye-bye. Happy Halloween.